안녕. Hi everyone. So now we know how to make a conclusion based on observation and parents and make the conjecture. So today we will learn how to use a counterexample. So let's find the definition of counterexample. A counterexample is an example that shows a conjecture is false. I will show two examples to find each conjecture is true or false. If conjecture is false, I will make a counterexample. So you can practice to find a counterexample of a false conjecture and you'll be able to make your own conjecture. Let's start with the number 1. The sum of any two consecutive integers is always odd. First, let's see if the conjecture is true or false. In order to do that, you need to understand the statement, right? So the sum means the addition. And what about consecutive integers? So we used the term consecutive even yesterday. So consecutive means the number or something right next to each other. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, da da da. So those are consecutive numbers. And also you need to know what is integers, right? So integers include positive number and also negative numbers. Also include 0, right? So let's make some examples. So any two consecutive integers. So let's say, what about 2 plus 3? That is 5. It says always odd. Is it 5 is odd number? Yes. What about then we using the negative number? What about negative 1 plus negative 2? So negative adding to negative, it will be stay negative and 3. Is that negative 3 is odd number? Yes, it is. We can make more examples to try. So try make some more example rather than I given to you. And eventually we will find out this will make always true statement. So the first one is the true statement. So that means we don't need to make a counterexample. Number 2, the product of two numbers is always larger than either number. So the product means what? That's right, multiplication, right? Of two numbers is always larger than either number. Let's give some example then. 2 times 5, that will be 10. So 10 is larger than 2, also larger than 5. It seems like it makes sense. What about, let's do 1 times 3. That will be 3. Is 3 larger than 3? No, it's actually the same, right? So this example make that statement false. Do we have another example? Let's see. What about 0 times 4? That is equal 0. So 0 is not larger than 0 nor 4, right? So this is also the counterexample. What about negative numbers? Negative 1 times 2. That will be negative 2. So negative 2 is less than negative 1 and less than positive 2. So that is also the counterexample. What about multiply with a fraction? What about multiply 3 times 1/3? Then we can simplify and 3, that's equal to 1. So 1 is less than 3. Yes, greater than 1/3, but less than 3. So that's another counterexample. So we have a several counterexample. That means this statement is false. Think about this, guys. In order to prove the conjecture is true, we have to testing out all the example that exist, and that is too hard to prove every single examples, right? So that is the reason why counter example is so important. Instead of we will prove it is true, we will prove it is false. So any one counterexample can prove that conjecture is false. Now let's move on to number 3. The product of two perfect squares is always a perfect square. So let's try some example if we may find a counterexample or not. So on here, what is a perfect squares, guys? 4, 9, 16, 25, so on. Any number that's squared, that's perfect squares, right? So let's try 4 times 9. 4 is 2 square and 9 is 3 square. So 4 times 9, 36. Is that 36 a perfect square? That's right, it's a 6 square, right? What about then we can try another one. 100, which is 10 squared times 4. Yeah, 2 squared, that's 400. So 400 is equal to what? 20 times 20, which is a 20 square. So until you find any counterexample, this is true statement. Number 4, if the area of a rectangle is 6 square meter, then the dimensions must be 2 meters by 3 meters. Let's see if it's true. So how we get area of a rectangle? That's right. We multiply length times width, right? So 2 times 3 is 6. So that is a correct one. However, it says must. Does that mean there is only case we get area of 6 square meter? It's 2 by 3. What about the other case? Can you tell? That's right. We can have what? 1 by 6, right? 1 times 6 is also 6. So there is another case we already found. That is our counterexample. So this is a false conjecture. Number 5, dividing by 2 always produces a number less than the original number. Alright, so this kind of case, we can try the negative numbers. We put negative 8 divide by 2, that will be negative 4. So the original number is negative 8. Whenever you have bigger number with a negative sign, that's less value. So what does that mean? Negative 8 is less than negative 4. So in this case, negative 4 is greater than the original number. So this conjecture is false by we finding the counterexample. Number 6, vertical angles are never complementary angles. So you need to know what is a vertical angles and complementary angles. We learned this on previous angle lesson. So vertical angles are facing each other. We gave a nickname as a bow tie angle, and they are congruent. And complementary angle, let's say angle A plus measure angle A plus measure angle B has to be 90 degrees. So can we find the case there are vertical angles and also there are complementary angles? Yes, if the vertical angles are 45 degrees. Does that make sense? If this is a 45 degree, then the other side is a 45 degree. So 45 plus 45, that's 90 degree. So this statement is a false that we found. Counterexample. Number 7, if A times B equals 0, then either A equals 0 or B equals 0. We know already anything you multiply with a 0, that will become 0, right? So 0 times B equals 0, A times 0 equals 0. So that will make always a true. So this is the true statement. All right, guys. Make sure check your work if there is any mistake and find out why you had that mistakes. If you have any question, let me know and I will see you next time. 안녕.